And now, the Law of Average Joe's podcast with your host, Cedric.
All right. I'm joined here with Joey. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. It's been a while since I've seen you. How's everything been as far as with writing?
Everything's good. We rode this morning. We rode last evening. It's just been so hot that it becomes miserable at a certain point. But, I was thinking in the car on the way over here, I think I've been knowing you for like 5 years now.
Yeah, right around there.
I feel like, and we met because of writing. So,
Yeah.
It's a really interesting community where people just from all backgrounds can just literally bump into each other at a stoplight and become friends out of that. And, you know what? I think the writing community is an exceptional place to just kind of meet people that are, of different element, of different size, style, whatever, so I've enjoyed the writing community because of that, and, enjoyed having you as a friend because of that. So, Hey, thanks for inviting me today.
Yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure knowing you. The rides we've taken together and just the personal stories and insights we've shared with each other is absolutely, I've definitely drawn from your wisdom and your knowledge and stuff. So I'm absolutely grateful for that relationship.
Right on.
And then, the heat is miserable. I think this is the longest span of triple digit weather that I've seen in my lifetime. I don't know. Is this the hottest you've seen it?
I feel like it's the hottest I've ever felt it. It's like I get up in the morning and go out and take out the trash at like 7 a.m. and there's like heat left over from yesterday still out there. It's like, oh man, it's going to be like that. So, I don't really care for it to be in triple digits for weeks on end. And so I'm hopeful that we get some kind of relief at some point. So,
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
They said that there's supposed to be some kind of huge heat wave hitting the entire United States here soon, but I don't know. We're used to it at this point.
Because whatever this isn't a heat wave. Remember last year they started like saying, can I swear?
Yeah, that's fine.
They start talking about that shit about an atmospheric river. It's like not even like regular rain.
I saw that.
It's like an atmospheric river. We have that, and then suddenly there's like a lake that we didn't even know about shows up. The weather's crazy right now.
Yeah, it's definitely some swings. Because I remember last year in 4th of July, it was like 70 degrees or something like that. It was not hot at all, and it was surprising because historically, I remember every 4th of July is extremely hot, and only gets made worse with all the fireworks and stuff. But yeah, it's a year for sure.
Been miserable. Yeah. So how's life treating you?
It's been going great. Yeah. Really good. Yeah. I am just starting up this project, trying to get everything rolling with it, and like with all the projects, it's slow going at the beginning, but I'm looking to stay consistent with it and build this into something that I can maybe make a living from in the future.
Well, great. I think it's awesome that you think I'm interesting enough to talk to. So there you go.
Well,
maybe people will watch and be, hey, what's up?
Right. When I started this, no, definitely you were one of the top people on my list because I don't know, I just feel like you have a wealth of stories and stuff, and we also kind of share a lot of commonality and every time we've just had a conversation, it's just flowed very freely. I feel that you're fairly loquacious, so. Now, as far as writing goes, I know that, I've seen several of your posts and stuff, and there's some real knuckleheads out there. Can you share a couple of experiences with times that people have just been way out of their depth on the road?
Well, there's a couple perspectives here. Okay. So there's the perspective of the writer,
right?
Like all I really want you to do in your car is just do whatever you're doing. Don't do anything else because I can judge you based on what you are currently doing. I cannot judge you based on what you're thinking about doing.
Right.
And then you do something silly in front of me. So, if a motorcycle's around, I like to educate my car driving friends about, hey, just in half a second we're going to be gone. You're not going to be thinking about us again because we are going to be so far away from you. So
right.
There's knuckleheads, and they definitely move over and they definitely do weird stuff. And I kind of developed a spidey sense for it now because one of my favorite things to do when I'm riding is actually ride in traffic. We call it making a meal of it. We're going to go make a meal of this traffic, and there's a lot about figuring out what those people are going to do before they do it. And I've gotten pretty good. It's kind of like a spidey sense, but once in a while, somebody will just get you.
Yeah.
And when I first started riding, I think I met you when I very first started riding.
Yeah, you had the R3.
Yeah, I was pretty new, and so I was pretty sketch about lane splitting and stuff like that. And I wanted to be very courteous to the cars, and so the courteous part of me is carried on in all of my iterations of bikes. And now that I'm on something much faster and much better, I can weave through traffic pretty well. I do have a couple of cool stories where people have just pulled out in front of me, and it's just been like, "What are you doing?" And I'll preface this by saying that I have enjoyed having a little bit of money in my pocket since I started riding. So I have the good equipment, anti-lock brakes, the whole thing. So that type of equipment with traction control and like the computers that kind of help you, I think it has definitely saved my life a couple of times. I was on like California Avenue one time, and I think I even posted a video about it. This lady she's knucklehead pulled out in front of me, but I was clearing the lane, so I didn't get my spidey sense that she was coming out because I was looking to my right. And then when I changed the lanes and then looked up, there she was in my lane, and we were millimeters away. Like I pulled over and stopped thinking that we had maybe touched, because we were like that close. And I mean, I was on the move too, 55 or 60 miles an hour. So I always like to put those types of videos on just so that I can educate my car driving friends, because people like to hear stories from me, I guess, and they want to know a different version. It can't always be somebody's just an asshole. It has to be about, that lady didn't see me, but she should have. And so, we can call her out for that a little bit, but also just helping others recognize that, hey, use your turn signals. If you use your turn signal, I'm not going to try to block you over there. What good is that going to do me? It's not a war, it's a game. It's not a war. So, when you get people that just like change over and suddenly now I'm having to make some kind of weird maneuver or something like that. I'm trying to be a better Christian these days, so I'm trying not to swear at them and cut and like flip them off and stuff. But like my early videos are filled with that. They're filled with me flipping people. Sorry, don't mean to bang.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Me flipping people off or screaming at them or something like that. I've learned that granting grace is just as fun. So now I'm less likely to flip you off, and I'm more likely to just maybe swear a little bit, but that's probably about it.
Right.
Like even yesterday evening we were riding and some lady wouldn't let me split the lane, and it was very frustrating to me, and going around her, I didn't even swear at her. I was like, come on lady, get out of the way. And I was like, who am I as a person right now? I'm being much nicer to her than I should be, because and then I had one incident when I was on the 405 in LA that is just memorable. So I'm lane splitting because that's what happens there. I mean, otherwise you're just stuck in.
Of course, yeah.
Like a little piece of my soul is on that freeway for how much time I've spent on the 405 going nowhere. So when I started riding up there and lane splitting, it's a beautiful thing. You're getting to where you need to be without any of that. And we were going, and the traffic was moving along about 15 or 20 miles an hour, and I was going probably 30 or 40. That's about what's happening there. And there was a truck in the left lane and a Mercedes in the right lane. And the lady in the Mercedes, there was a motorcycle in front of me. She kept hitting the yellow lines to keep a motorcycle in front of me from lane splitting on her. And so, I was behind him, and now there's just this weird thing happening, and she's being a real bitch about it. Well, he slows down and goes behind her over to the right and then splits her on the right. And I come up to the left, and now she doesn't know which one of us she doesn't want to go. So she's like going over to him, and then she starts coming towards me, and we're going up beside her at the same time. Well, she then comes over into me and hits me. And so she hits my handlebar,
contact.
And then I hit the truck next to me, and then I came back upright, and I didn't fall over. I was like, this is awesome. But now I'm mad as shit.
Right.
And so she probably had a $1,200 or $1,300 bill to put that mirror back on, because something may have happened to it as I was pulling away to keep her from bashing into me. But that was a pretty interesting time when I was smacked into by somebody who just was road raging against somebody lane splitting. When things like that happen and I catch the video and I put it on my Instagram, I like to tell people what the law is about it. I mean, if you do anything to stop a motorcycle from splitting in California, you are committing a misdemeanor. It is an arrestable offense. You can't do things that would make us not be able to lane split by. So
Correct.
merging over or doing anything, acting a fool, anything that could cause us damage is against the law. So it's better to just stay right where you're at. Just let us go by. We're gonna go by. We're gonna get by you, and that's gonna happen. And I also like to give the tribute, 2-finger peace sign to somebody who's done something cool. Like, give me that little extra inch so that I can get by. And there's a lot of people like that. So, I'll kind of bring it full circle in that Bakersfield is a cool place to ride. The community recognizes riders here because there are a lot of riders here. Mm-hmm. And so the cars know how to get along with us. So for the most part, people in Bakersfield get out of the way. They smile at you. Little kids wave to you. Little kids run over, want to rev the engine. I mean, everybody's into motorcycles here, sort of. So you very rarely run into that. I hate the term Karen, but you do, very rarely run into one, and it can get your blood boiling for sure.
Absolutely. No, I've definitely had my fair share of experiences too. Referred to what you were saying about using blinkers a little while ago. I saw a breakdown. Someone said only in California is the blinker considered like a competition. If you use your blinker anywhere else, it's like they'll kind of slow down and let you in because it's like, they're courteous. But in California, it's almost like a competition. That person will speed up to block you from getting over it.
Well, there's a mentality. Like I said, it's a game, not a war. And so a lot of people, they think that if anybody ahead of them is getting an advantage on them somehow, some way. And so there can be some interesting challenges with cars and motorcycles. For example, a lot of times if we get on a road and there's plenty of space in front of us, and we may choose to gather a little speed, which may be beyond what the little black and white sign says we're allowed to do. A lot of times the cars will be right there with us.
Oh, of course, yeah.
They want to see how fast we're going, so they're trying to peg their speedometer out there. And I always get a chuckle when I'm at a lot more than they are, and I leave them behind. And I think, man, I wonder what they're thinking in their mind right now as they're pumping that car as hard as it'll go. And I just left them in the dust, But cars chase after us too, They want to go as fast as we do, and so... it's best to leave us alone, though. Really, it's best to not try to match us on speed, especially Teslas. I've learned that if there's a Tesla around, some asshole's going to do something assholey. They're going to change lanes in front of you. They're gonna be mad if you lane split up next to them because they think they can out accelerate you. And so then now it's a game that by the time I'm through the intersection, I'm going 75. Where are you, Tesla? Bye. So they don't like it. It's like a challenge to their like, I don't know, freaking ego. I don't know.
I think because the acceleration on Teslas is pretty impressive, and it's just due to the powertrain. I think that they have kind of a more of an inflated ego about it because they could do that to almost every single car. But when you get to a motorcycle, it doesn't matter the powertrain. It's just that weight to power ratio. The motorcycle is going to win 99% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on a scooter here. I mean, this machine that I'm on is a fine-tuned machine, and there's no, it would be remarkable for a car to sit next to me and think, man, maybe I could take him.
Do you care to share what kind of motorcycle it is? A cruiser, a sport bike, and the type?
I'm a street rider, super sport. I have a Triumph Daytona 765 Limited. Mm-hmm. There's only 765 of them in North America, so it's pretty unique to see. And it's all carbon fiber, 400 pounds wet, and it is a tribute bike that was made by Triumph when they took over the Moto 2 tuning contract from CBR. And they built this bike, and it is just a phenomenal machine. It performs on the track, it performs on the street, it performs flawlessly. I mean, it's got a really nice electronics package on it that keeps everything grounded, and it's a real smooth riding machine. Plus, I've gotten spoiled now because it's got the speed shift, the shift assist up down. Mm-hmm. So I don't even use my clutch to do anything other than to take off and stop. The rest of the time I have no clutch, and so I'm just like, burning through the gears just as fast as I can. So there is no clutch lag for me. So my 0 to 100 is, you know, well up there with a leader bike because I don't have a lot of penchant in the clutch slow. So, I mean, it's just as fast as it can be, really. I've had it quite fast. I will say
I can imagine.
I will say that, you know, at about 170 miles an hour, you no longer hear your motorcycle.
Right.
And the dotted line on the ground is more like a solid line. You know, it's just it's a very peaceful place. But then you start thinking about things like your your obligations, and you know, so you start slowing down a little bit. But I've had it up there, and it's quite a neat machine to ride. So, and it turns heads. I mean, it really turns heads when we sit at stoplights and stuff like that. People definitely notice them, and so that's another reason why I started posting vlogs, because people really interact with us at stoplights and stuff. They wave and they see us dancing because we act a fool or whatever, and you know, it's pretty cool. Plus, I'm an old guy, you know, when I have my helmet on and it's all like smoked out and stuff like that, I look the part. I look 40 years younger than I am. So there you go.
Right. I know when it comes to speed, I definitely, when I was early on starting riding, I had one of my encounters with speed, because when you first get a bike, of course, you don't know how to do anything like cool on it. You know, the main thing is, you know, going fast, you know. And I mean, even turning, you know, is like something that is acquired over time to really get those turns down and not have such a wide turn berth. But I'm sure that I'm sure I've told you this story before, but with my arm here, how it's got quite a bit of leftover road rash on it, a little bit of asphalt still in the arm. I had that experience with speed to where it taught me that, you know what, I'm not really concerned about going fast. I'm more concerned with kind of, you know, doing the stunting and stuff on it.
Does that involve railroad tracks?
Yeah. So
Yes.
it was I'll keep the locale kind of a little nebulous.
I won't tell everybody where I went and picked you up.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes.
Yes, I do remember the story
yes,
quite well. But no, please go ahead, because it's a great story.
Yeah. So it was late at night. I had just gotten that brand new exhaust put on the bike. So I was really excited about that. I was finally, you know, people could finally hear me. It sounded sick. So I'm going. And, you know, I did a little something I shouldn't have. You know, I popped the wheel up, and I could have sworn that there was a police officer behind me. And so I didn't see the lights on, and I went ahead and took off. And just to clarify at this point, it was not a police officer behind me, so I did not evade or anything like that, you know, but I paid the price either way. So I'm going, and I'm, you know, getting the speed up, and I'm getting green lights. I'm loving it. And so I'm going, and I think I hit about 100 miles an hour, and I hit railroad tracks, and that little bump popped the wheel up just enough so when it came back down, it didn't come down completely straight, and I caught a massive speed wobble. And it was just like an absolute tank slapper from one side to the other side, and eventually the bike just dumps out from under me, and I slid quite a distance, like about a little bit past those tracks, all the way up to that gas station, just like, and luckily I didn't tumble, because when you tumble, that's where, you know, broken bones and stuff come from. But luckily I was mainly on my arm, and I had kind of like a little bit of pseudo armor on to protect the rest of me, and I was wearing a helmet. So I slide, and as I'm sliding, I remember thinking, like, how long is this gonna go? I felt like I was sliding for a cool like 5 minutes, but I was like, at some point this has to stop, right? And my whole time I'm just thinking, like, please don't let me hit a curb, because if I hit a curb, then I mean that's all kinds of bad. So luckily I remained in a straight line, and when I came to a stop, I remember I just like hopped up. I checked myself, I moved everything still moved, and then I just ran over to my bike, and a lady pulls up next to me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, don't call the police." So I grab the bike, I pick it up, and I walk it into the gas station parking lot there, and they made my phone calls, and a couple of people showed up, and I'm thankful that, you know, you had the time to come help me out. And it's crazy. The only thing wrong with the bike was like a bent handlebar and some scratches, of course.
Yeah, you know, that was an interesting night. You looked pretty bad. bad though. I mean, you were chewed up pretty good.
Yeah.
So, you know, I felt bad for you. But you know, those kinds of things happen. I crashed that R3 in the canyon.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that. Yeah.
tore the whole side of it up and hurt my ego, and it body slammed me to the ground really hard. So that's
Yeah.
I mean, there comes a moment where we all gather a newfound respect for riding those machines.
Yes.
And like you said, that's an intersection of speed and crazy. And there comes a point in which, you know, like for me, I'm not a stunt rider. Not not because I don't think it's cool. I do think it's cool, but it's not something that my body I think could do. And so I don't want to tear up my super expensive motorcycle doing crazy things that I'm not even sure I could do.
Right.
But I am built for speed. I was designed for this in my head for my whole entire life. And so my riding is about speed. And so I can appreciate that. But I also I'm cautious about bumps. I'm cautious about things in the road. There are a couple places where, you know, I ride with Kenny and he rides so fast and I can't keep up with him because there are bumps in the road that I just don't care for. And when you're leaned over pretty heavy and you hit a bump and you come off the ground, it's not a comfortable feeling for me.
Absolutely not.
And so that's where I lean on having a sophisticated bike that has the dampers so that I don't get tank slappers. And, you know, I've actually come close to having tank slappers with that thing on. I felt that device stop me from wobbling before based on one of those humps coming up around on Alfred Harrell Highway on the incline coming back towards town.
Right.
Those bumps are absolutely insane. And like, I can't do it. So I come down, I'll go 85, but you know, 105 is pretty scary right there. You know, it can be a lot. So, yeah, I feel you. Crashing is no fun. You got way more munched up than me, and I don't know if it was because I had on more gear, but I think it was probably because I didn't slide for 12,000
Yeah,
feet.
absolutely. That's what it is.
Coming in for a nice smooth landing. Just yeah, no thanks. I'm good. But I do remember your bike was pretty chewed up. I do remember you were pretty chewed up. And I do remember, I don't know if we should say this, but I feel like you're an adult now, so we could probably say this, but we had to sneak the bike like to the side of your house and you had to be like all quiet to go inside so that nobody figured out that you were all chewed up. And yeah, I remember that. I mean, the Snapchat story of your healing was pretty interesting after that. So
well, I learned, I mean, so I'm the type of person, I'm very intuitive. So like if I need to know how to do something, I do the research and I figured it out, and I'll share that kind of with everybody. Like when it comes to a road rash and wounds of that nature, just burns in general, because that's basically a friction burn, you know. The important thing is to let it heal from the inside out. You don't want it to scab over and heal downwards. So what I did and what I learned was to use petroleum jelly, like Vaseline. That is your absolute friend. One, to clean it as best you can, get everything out of there that you can. There's stuff you can get. It's called wound wash. And so it's a special formulation that it's not going to burn your arm like tap water or alcohol will. You can use that to irrigate it, get a lot of that stuff out. And then when it comes to keeping it clean, you know, use the Vaseline, use your antibiotics, and then cover it so that way that stuff can work. And then change that out, you know, daily. And that Vaseline, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it healed beautifully. I mean, you could still see some stuff, but the hair grew back, and I mean, it was deep. I mean, this was bleeding. So I mean, I'm really happy with the way it healed back. And every chance I get, I share that with people that, you know, may encounter that at some point, because we never want to encounter it, but if we do, I like giving people that advice so that way they can have as good a recovery as I did from it.
Fair. I have to be careful crashing these days anyway. And so like in my backpack, I've got like wound care stuff. Just
perfect. Yeah.
I take an aspirin regimen every day as part of a treatment, and my blood is super thin. So I'm not trying to, you know, even if I catch like a little nick, it'll bleed pretty profusely. So
yeah,
I try not to, but you know, I've often thought, man, if I start scraping this down the road, that's going to probably be a meaty mess. But I've got some stuff that you know, is like designed for a bad wound in my backpack. So,
yeah.
So that way I can try and keep all my blood internal until the ambulance gets to me, you know? Oh man.
Yeah. It's talking about injuries, I mean, aside from this one, I've had my fair share as well. I'm not sure if I told you, but or you may already know, but I sold my stunt bike. I kind of, I felt like when I was first into it, I was definitely very much like I had heart for it, but over time, I feel like I kind of plateaued. I got to a point where I was happy with where I was at, and I knew to progress further, I'm gonna drop the bike, I'm gonna fall, I'm probably gonna hurt myself, and so I just I wasn't willing to do that. So while I had the bike, I just kind of stayed at that plateaued level of where I was, and then my interests in life have kind of shifted. I've gotten older. I don't feel as invincible anymore. So I made the decision to go ahead and part ways with it. I still have my Harley because I'm always going to be a rider. That's just something that I feel like once that gets in your DNA, it's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've kind of moved on to mitigating my injuries as much as possible.
Well, as you go through life, there are varying phases of risk management that you tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're young, you obviously have a lower risk management problem. Everything is fine. Then you reach a part where you start paying for things, you start paying for like payments, and you got to go to work every day and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You start thinking that, maybe I'll have like 80% of the fun instead of 100% of the fun. And then let me tell you, you got this to look forward. So then you reach an age where you're like, okay, most of this stuff is paid for, and I have done all these things, and now I can really get crazy because I can afford to get crazy. And then you'll have that phase in your life, and then risk management will take a little bit of a sidestep to your midlife essentially. But going fast is in your DNA, like you said. You probably always ride. I mean, I've ridden with you on your Harley, and you're no joke about that either. I mean, you're still moving along at a clip. You're not. I wouldn't lead your viewers or listeners to believe even for a second that you're slow about riding that Harley, like most Harley people would be. I mean, I've never seen you really go slow. So it's funny to me that you say that.
I always follow the speed limit.
oh yeah. I mean, certainly none of us. We're talking KMH here, I mean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh man. Kind of segueing into a different topic, you mentioned your aspirin regimen and stuff. As probably a few people may know, maybe not a lot of people, but you did kind of go through a little bit of a medical emergency. What was this, a few years ago, or?
Yeah, it was exactly 3 years and a month ago today.
Oh wow!
So July 3rd of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah. It was a Saturday. I had gotten up in the morning. We were going to go ride the canyon. It was another one of those times where it was just ridiculously hot, and trying to get out early in the morning. I had woken up and I was tired, and that was kind of unlike me. I mean, I normally get up at like 5 in the morning, so I slept until like 8 in the morning. And so when I got up, I wasn't really feeling well, but I was excited to go ride the canyon. I mean, I wanted to get out and feed that adrenaline thing. And I started to eat. I wanted to eat something, and I didn't feel good. I started feeling like I was going to throw it up, and then I started having like this weird pain in my body that was like, it was concerning. I mean, it was, normally I don't feel like that. So,
yeah.
I used to smoke, so I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and it felt like I had set my chest on fire. I took like a drag from this cigarette, and I felt like I was dying. Like I clutched my chest, like somebody having a heart attack would do. It was like very painful. And so I went into the bathroom, and I spent the next half an hour in the bathroom, dry heaving, and then looking at myself in the mirror, drenched in sweat. My whole neck and jaw hurt. My chest felt like somebody was sitting on it, and the underside of my left arm was just. It hurt so bad.
Yeah.
And I kept telling myself, that can't be happening. I'm young. This can't be a heart attack. I mean, maybe if I just take a shit or something, I'll feel better. Maybe it's acid indigestion. I don't know. Because it was kind of in that place where acid indigestion would be. It wasn't like super high up in here like you would think it would be. It was like kind of right where the bone meets the middle right there.
Right
there. And I came out of the bathroom and finally I was like, hey, I think I need help. I think I need to go to the emergency room. And so I live kind of in the southwest part of town. So we went to Mercy Southwest. It's the closest hospital, right? Who knew that that was a bougie hospital? I didn't know it was a bougie hospital. I didn't know that they couldn't really do shit for you there when you're fucked up like that, you know?
And just if I could just clarify, so what's the timeline from when you first started feeling the symptoms and then to where you made that decision to go to the hospital?
So that it was about an hour and a half. So I had like knew something was going on for probably 45 minutes, but I had symptoms for about an hour and a half. And so in the car or in the truck on the way to the emergency room, you know, like I felt bad. Like the air conditioning vents, like I was like on top of them trying to cool off because I felt like I was just overheating. And so I get to the hospital and it was kind of COVID-y time still, you know, it wasn't like COVID, but it was like COVID, end of COVID.
Yeah. We're tapering down.
Yeah. We're not standing on tape on the ground anymore. You know, we're like, we're like free to kind of wander around, but you should wear a mask. I don't know what's happening then. But anyway, I get to the emergency room and I walk up to the security guard at the desk and I must have looked like hammered shit on a stick because that guy took like one look at me and I was like, hey, I need help, man. I can't breathe and my chest hurts. And he says, okay. A chair came over. I handed some lady my wallet as we wheeled by and they took me into this back and somebody said, hey, should we go into this room? And they said, no. And they took me over to another bed and then they started hooking shit up to me. And I remember everything very vividly at that moment because it was the crossroads of all of the bad decisions I had made in my life over the years, be it smoking, eating bad, whatever. I was 80 pounds overweight then, you know, I was in a bad way. And this guy comes in and he sticks this shit all over me. And then he's like, the Doogie Howser doctor comes in, he's like 12 years old, right? And he's like, what's going on? And the guy says, yeah, he's a positive STEMI. And I'm like, that sounds good. That sounds positive, you know? I feel like that's something good.
Yeah.
And the doctor goes, oh no. And then I started to panic because at that point, these other people came in, like a lot of people came in and like they lifted my arms up and they started putting like these huge IVs in my armpits and like filling me with drugs and like chew this, eat this. And another machine comes in and that's when the doctor tells me, hey, you're having a really bad heart attack right now and you came to the wrong hospital. We can't help you here. We don't have a cardiac unit at all. So we have to get you to another hospital. I'm like, okay, well, should we drive? What should we do? They're like, yeah, no, you're not driving. And it was about then that they started pumping me full of morphine for that pain. And then I started crying because I knew at that point that things were not good. I heard the people on the other side of the curtain. I heard some little kid say, is that man having a heart attack? And I heard someone else say, yeah, a really bad one. And then I was scared, you know, they were like, we've called an ambulance. We'll see what happens. And about a minute or two later, this like really heavy set, like hall ambulance guy, like sticks his head in the thing. And he says, hey, I heard you guys needed a STEMI transport. Our rig isn't clean, but we'll take him right now. And they're like, yes, please. Cause I think they just wanted me to not be in there.
Right.
Because, you know, things were about to go really, really south. So I get in there. This guy is super cool. I mean, the ambulance guys, hats off to them. They save people's lives all day and they do it with a smile and they do it for very little money. So I just want to kind of shout out that it's a thankless job sometimes, but man, if that guy wasn't there, if they weren't willing to do something out of the ordinary and they were cool to me. This one, he tells me, hey, the driver's a real shitty driver, but it's cool because you're really fucked up. So we get to turn the lights and sirens on. So everybody will just get out of his way. So, you know, we're probably not going to crash. I'm like, all right, let's go. So, you know, we're in the ambulance and I'm not well. I mean, I took a picture in my phone and thought that would be the last picture on my camera roll. And I started having this epiphany in life, like, how are people going to remember me? They are going to remember me as some foul-mouthed jerk that was always getting his way, pounding his way through life and granting no grace to anybody, you know, stepping on people as I go. And I felt like shit, really. Get to the hospital that has the heart place, you know, and like I said, it's the Saturday, the 3rd of July. My thought in the whole ambulance on the way there, because I was such an asshole, was like, I'm probably going to get the B team. You know, I feel like the good team's on vacation probably right now. So leave it to me to get this effed up when the B team's on deck, you know? So here we go. But we get there, and this doctor, he's a young guy. He meets me at the ambulance door and says, "Hey, I'm Dr. Desai. I'm going to do everything I can to save your life. I mean, we're out of time though, so let's go." And he is with them as they're wheeling me back to the cath lab, and he's asking me a few questions and stuff like that. And he was a really cool guy. We get to this room. The room is filled with people. They are already there. They called people in. This doctor was not the B team. They called him in. He was at home. He was in sneakers. He came. He met me there. So I thought that was super cool. I'm glad a lot of people went to college that day.
Right.
Because, without any of them, I'm not sure how it would have worked out. They put me on this machine, and there was like a lot of stuff going on. And there were probably, I want to count maybe 8 people involved in what was happening. People were poking me. Somebody was shaving my nuts. Sorry, bro. Whoever had that gig, you get that done. And they started like poking me in my wrist. And so they went into the artery in my wrist, and that was the preferred way to get to my heart to work on it kind of through that machine. And they shaved my groin to go in there in case that failed, because I guess this is the easier way, but they can go the other way if this route gets all jacked up or whatever. So they go in there, and I see above me there's like this machine. I can kind of see like a heart with like blood vessels and stuff, and it's like an x-ray kind of, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I lift my head up, and then the doctor says, and he's down here like by my wrist, he says, hey, don't move, man. I'm like inside your heart right now. So I like laid back down, and I look, and I see like this little wormy thing kind of moving around in there, and it gets to this spot. And then I felt this click in my chest, like a click. And they were shouting numbers back and forth, him and somebody in another room. They were shouting these weird numbers. I don't know what they were doing. But that little click right afterwards, I felt a million times better. I was like, oh, thank gosh. It was like that pressure that was in there was gone. But I also saw the blood start moving past that place where the little wormy thing was at. And he, at that point, I kind of leaned my head back, and I looked to the side, and there was a young kid nurse, I think. I don't know what he was. But he kind of held my head back so I couldn't lift it up again to see the thing. And every time something good would happen, he would kind of give me a thumbs up and kind of make me feel better about what was happening. Right. And they put another stent in, and again, I felt even a little bit better. It's like, hey, that's great. I'm better now, right? Yeah, no, you're not better at all, man. So I had what was called a widowmaker heart attack, which is a heart attack that involves the left anterior descending native artery of the heart. And it is the big one. It's the one that supplies blood to the left ventricle, or the working part of the heart, the heart that like really gives it a good go, Yeah. And because I had ignored the symptoms, and apparently I was having symptoms for weeks leading up to it, where I was tired, and I did notice a weird pain in my arm that I ignored, and like things like that for a couple weeks leading up to that. So I did some significant damage to my heart. That I have the left 10% of my left ventricle, the bottom 10% does not move. It is just a place where blood sits and doesn't move at all. And so I have to take certain medicines like aspirin and other medicines to try and cause that blood to constrict out. Otherwise it will turn into clotted blood in a part of my heart that's not moving, and like eventually send clots through me, and that would be bad. So I went on a journey from there for cardiac rehab for a year. I quit smoking. I started eating right. I dropped those 80 pounds. I started running. I started eating mostly right. And I am also now on a drug regimen right now where my cardiologist believes that I am well on my way to reversing heart disease. And so I feel good about that. But, all I'll say to anybody listening to this story is don't smoke cigarettes. Look, I'm not even judgy about it. Like I don't care what you do. Really, I don't. There was never a time I took a cigarette and thought, oh, this is remarkably healthy for me. Right. I mean, I was never like, this is probably good, but I ignored it because I thought that I was invincible. That same kind of invincible gene that I guess is in me for writing was also in me for, all the fun shit too. And it really was eye-opening. So as they're wheeling me out of that room and they're taking me into the recovery room, that young doctor leans over and he says, hey, this is because you fucking smoke cigarettes. Don't do it again. I was like, okay. And I never smoked again. And I was in the hospital for a few days. So they wouldn't let me go home until I walked around the thing a bunch because I was in what's called the telemetry ward where they like watch your heart all the time.
Yeah.
There's like a person sitting at a desk with like a bank of those things and they're just like looking at all the little beep, 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 beep stuff or whatever, right? And so I would get out of my bed about every hour and I'd take a lap around there and I'd wave to that lady each time I walked by. Still pumping? She's like, yep, still going. I'm like, sweet, make my way around. And I didn't lay down for it. I got home and I guess I took it easy for probably 3 or 4 days. And I got up and just started walking. I walked 10 miles a day while I was at home right after I had a heart attack. The doctor said, the more you walk, the better you're going to do. So that's what I did. And I walked a lot. I was back at work in 33 days.
Wow.
So
that's a quick recovery.
It was, I think I might have went back a little early, but I was also eager to get back. Like I'm not a lay around kind of guy. And so I was still working from home, I mean, people still calling me, still, doing my thing, solving problems and pissing people off and whatever it is I do through the day. But back to that moment of like the epiphany of what are people going to think of me? What are they going to remember? What is that thing? And I went on a spiritual journey after that too, to try and discover what that meant for me and to learn to be a better person and a nicer person. So that's why I don't flip people off anymore now. I just give them up. What are you doing?
Right.
Trying to grant people grace where I wasn't always so willing to do that in the past. I feel much lighter in my heart that way. And people have noticed like, you know what? I'm a much nicer person now. So now I'll go to like for a cheat meal, I'll go to Wingstop. I'll order a 6-piece and get 8 because I'm that nice to people when I talk to them. When people that you meet, strangers, I mean, it costs nothing to be kind to people.
Right.
That was something that I took for granted all the way up to that very moment, and when they're shocking you and you're like trying to like stay alive and you're like, you go through this place in your head where you're like, no, the things that I have done up to this point are not good enough. And so that has been the best part of that journey. So even though I had that happen, and even though I now have heart failure and I have like all these things that I have to kind of deal with, I am glad that it happened because it opened my eyes to a much broader place, a neater place to be for sure. I'm much more contemplative, I'm much more forgiving, and I'm much more willing to listen to another side that doesn't necessarily match my way of thinking, So no, I don't think everybody should have a heart attack, but I definitely think that people should occasionally stop and take a quick moral inventory and just ask yourself, what are people going to think of me after I'm gone from here? What message did I leave? What stain is in the environment because of me?
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and certainly, I think one of the best takeaways that you can take away from that. I do have a couple of questions, and because ideally no one would have a heart attack, but and I'm sure no one wants to have a heart attack. So, are there certain key things that you can identify? Of course, the smoking, but I want to go into what are some things also that contributed to getting to that spot, and then also what are some changes that you made and some things that people can do to, if maybe they're on the track to getting to that level, they can take some steps to reverse that and avoid that.
Right, absolutely. So, obviously smoking is bad. What smoking does is it increases the cholesterol in your blood. And the reason cholesterol is weird because like it's less dietary with cholesterol as much as it is what your liver's doing with stuff. So what cholesterol does is cholesterol goes out and it collects all the bad shit in your body and comes back. So if you have a bunch of bad shit in your body, then suddenly you've got a bunch of cholesterol in your body. And so that's kind of what's happening there. So you kind of have to get rid of the bad shit with all the chemicals and the smoking and different things like that. But diet too. Look, I used to eat a whole large pizza at lunch because I've always had like this crazy metabolism. I never really got fat. But then when I got older, I started like putting it on, I started like jiggling when I walked down the stairs. And so I was like, oh, that's weird, but I was like, oh, I'm getting a dad bod, haha, or whatever. I mean, it didn't bother me that much to throw on 80 pounds, I mean, I still didn't look like obese or anything, but internally my body was like revolting in the way that I ate. And so that, and sometimes dinner was a pound of M&Ms. It was like whatever was there and easy to do, and that's so it was mostly diet, and being a person who didn't go out and run and didn't walk and didn't enjoy doing any of those things, and so I had to find those things about myself. I slowly kind of built those things up as I went, and now I find comfort in them. It's time to listen to things and connect with my own spirituality. I mean, give yourself those times every day. That, to me, if you're feeling like you're on a crash course to a bad health problem, the best thing to do is to take inventory of what you're putting into your body. It has to be about food. It has to be about eating. It has to be about maybe even putting yourself in a calorie deficit for a short period of time, and then eat fiber. I mean, I never ate fiber. I mean, I would eat like the meat around the vegetables. I'd be like, my food ate that green stuff, so I don't need to eat it.
Right.
And so I've learned to eat a lot more vegetables. I've learned, you can find ways to eat things that you don't like. Like I've never really cared for vegetables, and if you don't cook them, I'm likely to eat them. So I'll eat raw vegetables all day long, which are exceptionally good sources of fiber. Radishes, stuff like that, crunchy stuff, whatever. I'll eat that stuff all day long, and there's very little calories, and but it's better than eating a whole bag of Doritos, because that's where I was before. And so changing diet is definitely key, but I also think that not sitting around, get up, do stuff, pay attention, and then get checked up regularly. Like 6 months before I had this heart attack, I went in and the doctor goes, "You got high cholesterol, we got to put you on this drug that makes it go down," and I wasn't too keen on it. It's like, "Can we just check it next time?" Mm-hmm. He was like, "Yeah." And then I also had high blood pressure, and being a pilot, I didn't want to deal with having high blood pressure. So every time I would have to get my blood pressure taken for something, they would be like, "Your blood pressure is a little high." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we'll check it again." And and we would do that, and then eventually they would lie on the thing or whatever. I don't know what it was, but I was always told for like the last 5 years, "Hey, you have high blood pressure." I'm like, "Oh, I'll tell my doctor about that," or whatever. I mean, I never really, I didn't want that to be a thing, because
Right.
that was definitely
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, well, it was, let's hide that from the FAA as much as we can, too,
I gotcha.
I mean, I didn't want to admit that I was failing health-wise. And so, answering your question, one of the keys would be to be honest with yourself. And as you're taking inventory, be really honest with yourself. You know what you're eating, you know what you're doing, you know what recreationals you're doing, or any of those things, and just be honest with yourself. And then I also learned that doing things in moderation is key. So I don't need a large pizza for lunch. I can have a slice of pizza for lunch and enjoy it just as much, So there was that. So, don't take things to extremes, I guess, is probably another good lesson to think about when you think about your health. But also listen to your body. I knew something was bad. There was a moment in which I would walk from my office to one of the job sites or something like that, and just in the walk be like, "Oh, this weird pain under my arm." I'll never forget that pain. It went from my elbow to my armpit, and it felt like a weakness pain, and it was there, and I knew it. And man, I wish I would have said something when it first started happening, because then I started having that pain in my chest, and I ate probably 2 bottles of Tums in that 2 weeks leading up to it, thinking that was what was going on, and that's not what was happening at all. So starving the lower part of my heart of blood was what was happening, So, and then, if you're getting older, carry, 650 milligrams of aspirin in your pocket. And then that way, if it ever starts to feel like that, and the worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to have a little bit of aspirin in your system. The best thing is that you will have thinned your blood out very rapidly, and allowed for you to buy yourself a little bit of time to get to a hospital. So aspirin is a life-saving drug for that. So.
Is it because I've seen where they recommend baby aspirin or regular aspirin? Doesn't necessarily matter, or is the dosage the main thing?
So the daily dosage, I guess, and look, I'm not a doctor, so don't be taking any of this shit to heart, but when you're taking daily regimen of aspirin, it's 81 milligrams a day, and that's the number that keeps things nice and thinned up, even if you're filling it with a little bit of cholesterol or whatever, but 81 milligrams. But when you're having the heart attack, they dump a bunch of that shit into you. You're like chewing up like 3 or 4 big boy aspirins in your mouth. Let me chew that up. It's disgusting, but it's what does it very quickly. So I always carry a couple of aspirin on me just in case, I start to, something bad starts to happen, I'll eat those. And like I said, the worst that happens, you got a little thin blood for a day or two. The best is that it saved you from whatever was happening, if something was happening. So
of course.
Right after my heart attack, all of my friends and all the executives at my company called me, and the very first thing they said after, they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I was like, "What'd it feel like? What were the symptoms, my man?" Everybody wants to know. And so, I happily share. I happily tell people, that's kind of what it was. So, it was quite a experience.
Of course,
sure.
yeah.
And being so young, I was 48 years old when that happened, and so that was quite shocking for me as well.
Yeah. One last thing, you had mentioned that your doctor said you're well on the way of reversing heart disease or reversing the damage that's been done.
No, the damage is there. It is what it is. And so what happens is there's a measure. There's a measure that they're looking for in the performance number of your heart. And heart failure is when that number lowers down to a place and essentially goes below a number, and whatever that number is. And so that number doesn't normally get better. It does a little bit after a heart attack, especially a widowmaker. So that number is called an ejection fraction. It's like how much of your shit is actually escaping your heart when it pumps, And so the day after I had my heart attack, so that's a scale of 0 to 100, right? And so just naturally, as you get older, that number drops from 100 down to, a person my age right now at 51 with a healthy heart should have an ejection fraction of about 60%, 60, right? And you would think, oh, that's not a lot. It is. That thing's been pumping for a long damn time, I mean, it's done its thing. So, and it wears out. It's not an infinite part of your body, So the day after I had my heart attack, my ejection fraction was 27. So it was bad. My heart was not keen on what had happened. And so in strengthening my heart with both the medicine that they give you, because they give you medicine that kind of restructures how your heart works and stuff like that. And then exercising and developing a stronger heartbeat, my ejection fraction is now, they give it in range, so my ejection fraction now is 45 to 50. And so if they can get it to 50 to 55, then I will be reversing the heart disease, the disease that caused my arteries to be fucked up in the first place, which is the atherosclerosis, or however you say it. I don't know. It's like your arteries are fucked up because there's a bunch of shit in them,
They've hardened to a point.
Yeah. And so those things they typically don't reverse, typically it's, once it's there, you've got heart disease, and that's just, you kind of live with it, and you take Rybelsus or whatever the thing on TV tells you to take, or whatever, We were laughing the other night. I was like, I now pay attention to those commercials. I'm like, hey, do I need that shit? What is that? but there's a lot of stuff in the medicine, and then just kind of in the attitude too. My cardiologist, she's a remarkable woman. I didn't get to keep that same guy as my cardiologist because he was out of network. That's another thing. Heart attacks cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw the bill. I'm glad I had insurance. I'm just saying. Just glad I had insurance. But my cardiologist now, she's an amazing person. And now I only have to see her every 6 months. So I go every 6 months, and they take a look at stuff, and whatever. And her and I laugh, and we make bets with each other about how much weight we can lose, or I'm able to talk openly about, hey, sometimes I get this stabbing pain in there, and I think, oh, that's it, it's happening again, and then it goes away. It's like, man, what, are you tricking me or what? She's like, no, that just happened. She's remarkable. She's been a great partner to me. So another bit of advice: get a cardiologist that you like and that you're not afraid to talk to. And my first cardiologist, he was a real, not the guy that did the stents and stuff, but the first guy that I saw afterwards. I demanded my insurance company pay for somebody out of network, and I went to somebody else. He was mean. Like, this is what happened. So check this out. Like 2 weeks after I had a heart attack, I had my first cardiology appointment, which was to set me up to go to rehab and all this stuff, right? So I show up at this place, and How did I show up at this place? With a helmet in my hand and a chest protector on. And the doctor takes one look at me and he says, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" He goes, "You rode a motorcycle here?" And I go, "Yes." He goes, "You had a massive heart attack 2 weeks ago." I'm like, he goes, "They didn't tell you not to drive when you left the emergency room?" I said, "No." He goes, "Yeah, you're not driving for 30 days, my guy." And then I'm like, wait, what? And they didn't say anything about not driving.
Yeah.
He's all, "Yeah, but it should have been like, I mean, where you at in your head?" I'm like, "Well, I needed to go to the doctor and here I am." So he was so pissed and he was like such a jerk to me. He's like, "You're gonna have to get somebody to come and get that and you're not going to be driving home." And I'm like, "Okay, well, so he makes it difficult for me to get home." But he made me cry too. I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because then he said, have you been fitted for your life vest yet? And I'm like, "What's a life vest?" And he's like, "It's the thing that's going to shock the shit out of you if your heart stops." And I said, "I didn't even know I had to have that." I go, I feel like if it was so urgent, they would have done that at the hospital before I went home, or even told me that I needed that. They didn't tell me anything like that. They said, "Don't eat barbecue and stop smoking." I'm like, "Great, off I go." And so now I'm at this guy and he's freaking out, right? And he wants me to wear this vest thing, right? So they send this lady to my house to fit this vest on me, right? Now I have to carry a machine around and it has to be connected to the internet. I mean, there's just a lot of shit going on with this machine, right? Well, one night I go to get into bed and that machine says, "Bystanders, please stand by, preparing to deliver therapy shock." And I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, so I didn't know what to do. They didn't tell me what to do if it ever happened, right? So I'm like, do I stand up? Do I sit down? I mean, should I lay down for this? I mean, I don't know what's happening. It's all counting down. It's like 20, 19. I'm like, so I get down on my knees. I'm like lifting my hand up like this, trying to keep the dog away from me so the dog doesn't get shocked or whatever. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why it's doing it. And then it shocks me. And I'm like, it hurt, it burned me. It was bad. It's like, and so I go to the emergency room that night and only to learn we don't know why it shocked you. I was like, "Okay, well, I don't know why it shocked me either." So then I get on the internet and I learned that this little machine has occasionally killed people just because it just overly shocks them, just starts shocking them and doesn't stop. So I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think I want to wear this machine anymore. I almost want to kind of take my chances and see what happens." And so I took that off and I stopped wearing it. But because it had to be connected to the internet, now it's told the doctor that I'm not wearing it. Mm-hmm. So I get a call from the doctor. "You're not wearing your thing." I'm like, "You're absolutely right. The thing knocked the shit out of me and I don't trust it." So he says, "I don't think I can be your doctor." I said, "I don't think you can either." And so I got a new doctor. Right. And I really, really like my current cardiologist. She's great. She's my age. She's, we get along. We talk mad shit. Like the last time I was in her office, she said, "Hey, we need to tone it down because people are asking questions when we walk out here because we laugh hard. We laugh about shit. We'll be like, and it's not even appropriate shit. So I'm not even going to say anything about the shit we laugh at, but it's funny. We're probably talking shit about, others in the clinic that day. Even It's like, whoa, look at that. How can you be that big and not think you need a cardiologist? It's so weird. But no, so a lot of things happened on that day, that July 3rd. I'm thankful for everybody that was involved. You know what? I'm thankful for the doctors, thankful for the nurses, thankful for the kid that just gave me thumbs up. Sorry to the guy that had to shave my junk, and I feel bad for all of that to even have happened. So
yeah.
But like I said, taking the positive is that it changed my perspective in one fell swoop very, very quickly. So, that's what happened.
Yeah. It's amazing. In the United States, it's cardiovascular disease is one of the leading causes of mortality. I actually had another experience with that where I used to work. One of my coworkers. It's a stressful environment, working at a car dealership. It's, it can definitely get to its long hours, the stress of the sale, all those factors, in and of themselves, can definitely impact you and raise those stress levels. But this gentleman, he had worked, I think, 8 days straight, just and not just collecting hours, he was going hard, and he had an episode where he thought something was wrong with his heart, so they took him to the hospital and they told him it was just a panic attack. And I'll be honest with you, looking at what's happened now, I don't think that was a correct diagnosis. I think I would hope that if you go into the hospital, they can give you an accurate, diagnosis of what's going on. But maybe it was, I don't know. But what ended up happening is after those 8 days, he was out sick, and he was out sick for a while, and then another week went by, and we found out that he had actually had a heart attack. I don't know many details of it, but he did end up passing away. And then that impacted a lot of people, because he was a really good guy, and he had, I think that it was something, didn't just happen overnight, because he had actually shed a lot of weight. He was doing really good for himself, and then it just kind of out of the blue that happened. And it definitely impacted a lot of people at the dealership, myself included. And even to this day, I have, like I said, whenever I've learned about something or I'm looking into something, like I research the shit out of it. And I I think I've given myself a little bit of what they call a cardophobia. I'm young, and I don't necessarily think I'm super at risk for anything, but I'm not getting any younger. And so sometimes I have heart palpitations, and I'm like, it gives me a little bit of pause. No major symptoms or anything like that, but definitely I really appreciate all the insight that you bring to it, because I feel like a lot of people sometimes, I mean, you said it yourself, sometimes you look at the symptoms and you're like, no, this can't be happening, and you kind of maybe delay that treatment. So I'm thankful for your insights to provide to myself and then everybody who may be watching to, if something like that were to happen, you can take that action as soon as possible.
Right. And I've even talked to a lot of people that have had a heart attack. Look, there's a couple different things that we can talk about just real quickly. So there's cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest is a electrical problem. If you go into cardiac arrest, you're probably going to die. That's just what happens. I mean, look, that means something's not signaling and telling your heart to beat. Then a heart attack is actually a plumbing problem. That's an arteries problem. It's a clogged vessels problem. That's what's happening with a heart attack. After my heart attack, I went back to the emergency room in that bit 31 days before I went back to work 3 times, thinking that I was having another one. And the doctor finally, when I went there the 3rd time, was like, okay, hey, check this out. So I'm gonna be real with you. We're not really supposed to tell people this kind of shit, but I'm gonna help you because I don't want you to be scared all the time that every little twinge in your heart is a heart attack. There it is, the big one's there. He said, if it lasts for 3 or 4 seconds and it's like that sharp, he goes, that's nothing. Something got crossed. It's fine. You're gonna be fine. Your heart will go back into rhythm. It'll be fine. We all have that. He said, if you can change your position and change the pain, it's not a heart attack. So positionally, if I could roll to the left, or roll to the right, or straighten up, or do anything that changed the pain, it didn't even have to make it feel better, just changed it. It's not a heart attack. That's what he was telling me. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, so you're guarded right now. Your body is guarded. And so you're getting a lot of musculoskeletal pain, and so that can mimic some of those things, especially if you're super nervous about it. So, if you can lay on your side and it stops hurting, it's not a heart attack. If you can lay on your back and it stops hurting, it's not a heart attack. Then if you're trying to compare and trying to understand if you're having a heart attack or heartburn, one of the easiest ways to kind of tell is that if you're laying down still and it really, really hurts and it's burning and you're like, oh my God. And then you get up and you are active a little bit, like walk a little bit or something like that, and that pain goes away, it's heartburn. But if you get up and you start walking around and it doesn't go away and it gets worse, then you might want to think about having that checked out, and by checked out, I mean, you know the moment that it happens,
right.
And so, you give yourself that couple of minutes to try to gut check yourself through it. I don't recommend an hour and a half. I recommend a much shorter period of time, because I could have possibly done less damage to my heart that morning by paying a little more attention, not standing in the bathroom going, come on, this can't be real. This can't really be happening. That was the dumbest thing that I could have possibly done. So, paying attention to your body is, it's key. That Sharpie pain thing like that, people get that, it is what it is. But like I said, what you're doing, how you're living. And so, if your risk is there, I mean, the people that have the Widowmaker heart attack that I did, that involves the LAD or the left anterior descending artery, there, of the people that have that heart attack, 60% of them do not make it. And then the 5-year survival rate is even lower than that. The 2-year survival rate is super low too. So the fact that I've made it 3 years and 1 month, you know, I celebrate every 6-month milestone at this point, because they're all time that I shouldn't have had. And so I'm hoping to get to that 5 years. I feel like I'm going to get to that 5 years. I feel really good. I feel like I look better. I'm much healthier. You know, I was not a healthy person before, you know. I mean, I would get off my motorcycle after going super, super fast, you know, daring the devil, then hop off to smoke. So I'm daring the devil there too. You know, it was like a constant dare to the devil, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I knew what I was doing, and I knew how I got there, and it was not really that hard to turn it around. I mean, I missed food, which is why I allowed myself a cheat day. So like every Friday I would sneak off and have birria tacos at Taco Bros, or go to Wingstop and have some wings or whatever. And that was like my way of, you know, thanking myself for making it through the week of eating twigs and berries and bullshit like that, you know. Mm-hmm. But if I had to go back in life 25 years and like change all those things to not have a heart attack, I certainly would do that. I would, no doubt about it. Yeah. So like you always ask yourself, well, what would you tell your 25-year-old self? Well, I would kick the shit out of my 25-year-old self, but then I would tell him, hey, you know, cut back on some of the stuff. You don't need a whole pizza.
Right.
You don't need a whole pack of cigarettes that day. So that's kind of where I took it from there, you know.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So to kind of lighten the mood, bring a little bit of levity, we're going to do the reel review now. So this is the section, some of our viewers, they will send in reels, and you can send those into the Law of Average Joe's podcast. That's an @ on Instagram. And I will choose a couple just randomly, and then we'll react to them. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the first one up here.
Like a mad scientist.
What I need, Doctor.
I can't give it to you here, baby.
Oh my God.
Can't give it to you here, baby. No, you cannot, doctor. You know, I mean, it's funny. I had this old friend. Her name was Thelma. She went to the doctor, and she said her knees hurt and her ankle hurt. And the doctor's like rubbing her knee, and she's like, "Could you go a little higher?" And he's like, "Ma'am, you're gonna have to leave." So you know, I guess the doctors kind of get it a little bit too. But that was funny. That guy said, "Yeah, I can't give it to you here, baby."
Oh man, it's like you said with your cardiologist. It's good to have that good a nice relationship
I don't know about that relationship. Whatever's happening there might be a little skanky, but right. I mean, hey. Doctor looks like Bernie Sanders.
Name me 5 Black historic people.
George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Mark Wahlberg, Hulk Hogan. That's 5.
I was thinking like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks, who she play for, the Raiders?
Okay, so, yeah, you know, my reaction to that is going to be the education system in our country might be failing. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It may not have even reached that guy at all, ever. Black people, sir. That's what he was asking you. What name 5 historic black people?
Do you think there's a chance he was just messing with the guy?
I would hope so right. At this point. But you know what? I mean, I've seen some crazier shit on the internet. I mean, The internet is a vile and toxic place. So.
Absolutely, yeah. It's certainly, it's almost one of the last frontiers in a sense, you know?
Fair.
All right, we got one more.
Take that. Oh, look, it's us. Why are you gonna punch his helmet? I mean, who are you punching the guy's helmet? But you know what? They're obviously taking it way too seriously.
Right, of course, yeah.
And B, but you know what? What a cool wreck. I mean, I feel like those things had plenty of power to get out of the grass. I mean, I feel like you could have got back into it, and to jump off and punch the guy in the helmet proves that you probably aren't that bright.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Unless you're wearing those gloves that have like the knuckles on them, you know? Which,
Yeah, I mean, I've got carbon fiber in my knuckles and stuff like that. And I mean, I can punch, but what's happening? The guy's hearing a loud clink, you know, I mean, nothing's really happening.
Yeah.
You punch him in the stomach or whatever, kick him in the junk. I mean, I don't know. Punching him in the face when he's got a helmet on, just it's remarkable. And plus, I'd be mad. My helmet's expensive. You start punching on my helmet, I'm probably going to fight back like hard.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I would wonder, like, you know, and that's one thing that's always missing. I feel like in a lot of situations is like the context. Yeah, I wonder, did he just fire off? Was it just that one little tap and then he just fired off like that, or was that guy just messing with them the entire track or something? You know.
And they're brothers. They're brothers, and they just beat the shit out of each other when something bad like that happened. So it was a rivalry from birth.
Yeah,
it wasn't even just something that was born at the racetrack that day. You know?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So moving on. This is probably our last topic. Are you comfortable discussing firearms?
Sure.
Perfect. So, I'm a firearm owner. You are too. What would you say? What would you say your favorite firearm is? Whether you own it or just something that you'd like to own.
So I obviously would own my favorite firearm.
Right.
So I do. I have a Kimber Eclipse Ultra Carry 2 and a 45 ACP that is an everyday carry for me. I like it because I'm a freaking surgeon with it. I mean, really, look, it comes down to what gun can you shoot? What gun fits your hand? What gun fits your weight? What gun fits? Can you hide it on you? I mean, you're not trying to stuff a bazooka or a crossbow down the front of your pants, you know? I mean, you need to find a gun that you're comfortable with that is a tool for you, and then train yourself with it and learn how to use it and learn how to make it an extension of what your will and desire would be. And so I carry my Kimber Eclipse. It's an expensive gun. Not everybody can have one of those, but you know what? It is a diamond. It is just an amazing gun to shoot. So don't carry it on the motorcycle. That's a M&P Shield compact and a 40 cal. That way, if it goes sliding down the road, I'm not going to really care that much about it, you know. And plus, if the EMS people have to take it, you know,
right.
it's a little easier to deal with. But I don't care for that gun that much. I don't like to shoot it. I mean, I will if I have to. I'm pretty accurate with my first 2 shots with it, but 3 and 4 kind of wander about, and I think it's because it just doesn't fit in my hand very well.
I gotcha.
I mean, it's super small and super easy to shoot, but it doesn't fit in my hand very well. So,
and I'm sorry, is that you said it's the M&P Shield 40, or is it the Shield, the smallest one, or is it just the compact?
It's the compact Shield. It's so the M&P Shield comes in a full size frame, and then it comes in a compact frame, and the compact frame is quite small, fits in the palm of my hand right there.
I think I have the same one.
I can drop it in my pocket of my shorts and
okay, yeah.
I mean, it's not. But in a 40 cal and a tiny frame like that little bastard's a snappy gun to shoot. It is, you know? And it'll kind of get away from you. Like I said, I'll hit you with the first one. You know, 3 and 4 were a suggestion. So hopefully you're jumping in the air, because I think that's where it's going to rise up to.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely, you know, firearms are to me. To deny that the firearm has a place in our history would be a remarkably stupid thing to do, because manufacturing techniques were built around firearms. Our country was essentially born of a firearm, and so to deny that part of our history and to deny that our founding principles were on the fact that people should be allowed to have them it's wrong, in my opinion. And so while I'm not a liberal and I'm not a conservative, I'm an independent, and I'm an independent thinker. Liberals really drive me a little bit crazy with some of the legislature on handguns, and I think that conservatives are kind of stupid in their resistance to take on real meaningful firearms legislation. Like, I do think that you should be checked out real quick in your head before you can own a gun. Like somebody should talk to you, and be like, hey, are you okay? And you can tell when somebody's off.
Right, of course, yeah.
And so I like that it's a little bit difficult to get a concealed carry permit to be able to carry a gun. I think that you should be examined that way. You should be of a good moral character, and you should be of a good law-abiding citizen in your community. And then at that point, good people with guns are out there, and there are a lot of them. There are 70,000, concealed carry holders in Kern County alone. So you got to think about that when you're out and about. You don't want to mess around too much. at my church recently, and I won't mention what church I go to, and one of the clergy members and I were very, very close friends. And you know what? I treat people at church like I treat anybody else. I say bad words, whatever comes out, comes out. This is me. This is who I am. And God accepts that, I believe. So at the end of the day, I talk shit sometimes. And so we were having a conversation. He says, well, if all the guns were gone, there would be no gun violence. And I said, well, if everybody had a gun, there would be no gun violence either. He's like, what? And I said, and while we're at it, if we're going to get rid of them all, I will put mine on the pile at the very, very last. There will be the very last one that goes on the pile, because they're always going to be there. I didn't make that. I didn't make that up. I didn't even make it a thing. I mean, I was born into that. I didn't invent them.
Right.
But to deny myself the ability to protect myself, or to protect my family, or to protect others around me in the event of some whack job who has a gun, imagine that, and be able to protect myself. I always tell people I like my odds in a gunfight way better if I have one too.
100%. Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to do much, much better. And I feel like I'm much more disciplined, and I'm a much smarter person than a criminal would be. I'm not aimlessly out there shooting at somebody being stupid, because the people that are doing that are being stupid, and a smart guy like me can take them out very, very quickly. I believe that, and I've seen it happen. I mean, I have seen concealed carry holders like really, really, take somebody to task that would be hurting them. And look, they didn't ask that person to hurt them. They didn't do anything other than be prepared. Just like I have a fire extinguisher. If my house catches on fire, I would like to put it out.
Correct. Yeah.
So if somebody tries to stick me up, I'd like to make sure that they can never call me their victim. That's just not something that it's not a label I'm comfortable with. Yeah. You're the victim. No. The victim took a different ride today. It wasn't me. So anyway, so firearms are an important part of, kind of who I am, and who a lot of people would look at me and not think that. And so that's kind of funny too, to me, but you're not safe anywhere. They go into churches and they, rallies for your presidential freaking guy or whatever, if that's your guy, and you're there and now suddenly somebody's shooting. Look, I don't even care. I don't even like Trump. I don't like that guy. I think he's an asshole. But I don't want anybody to shoot at him. I think that we have crossed a line when that happens. And you know what? That person had a firearm. Wow. Imagine that. And so, to me, if everybody there would have had firearms, it probably would have filled that guy with holes like very, very quickly.
A lot sooner
Everybody's
than
like,
they did,
it's coming from over there. Let's all just, fire off a few rounds over there and see what happens. To me, like Switzerland, I've been to Switzerland. Switzerland, sorry. So in Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland, we were there, and that's when we learned that everybody has a gun there. Everyone in Switzerland has a gun, and they're supposed to be like the neutral party and shit or whatever, right? Yeah, everybody has a gun there. Everybody. We stumbled upon a beer festival that also had a target shooting competition at it. So people are drinking beers and shooting targets in a park. It was remarkable to me. I was like, this is a society I could live in. But everyone is required to be in the military, and there's no gun violence in their country. None. But everybody has a gun. And so, there's, like I said, both arguments can be true. I mean, no guns, no gun violence. Everybody has a gun, no gun violence, or very little gun violence, at that place. But I also think that if there were no guns, there are rocks, and there are axes, and there are hammers, and there are, they could probably stab you with that lava lamp or something if it really came down to it, I mean, so... the tool is not the monster, the person is the monster. And so, guns are a pretty smart way for me to protect myself, in my opinion. So,
and I agree, I would say, tying into Switzerland, in a sense, they all have to serve in the military, but with that comes the training with the firearm. I feel like there are certain things I disagree with with the way that guns are legislated here, and I don't want to get into the weeds on it or anything, but one thing that I think is, if instead of waiting periods and licenses and all this stuff to own a gun, instead, when you go to buy the gun, you have to either go through a training course and qualify with the firearm, like show that you know how to buy it. You can't just be some yokel off the street and just buy a gun and now you just have a gun, I think having a certification And then each time you get a gun, you either prove that you have the certification or recertify with it. That way, there's a certain level of education and skill that gets built in with the ownership of the gun rather than just owning one without any of those.
Yeah, no. And I think that we probably part a little bit there. I think that there should be some type of registration and some type of understanding of who's buying that firearm, because I do not think that
certainly background checks, yeah.
People that have been convicted of a crime or of a felony, misdemeanors are kind of what they are. I mean, lives are filled with bad decisions and misdemeanors. But if you're a felon, if you rob people and you stick people up and you beat your wife and you do stupid shit like that, I don't think that you should be allowed to have a gun.
And no, we're on the same page there
red
for
flag
sure.
laws there. So registration doesn't seem to be a big problem for me, or a quick background check, any of those things. And my problem is, and like you, I don't think that a waiting period does much for us. And for that, maybe your first gun that you buy should probably have a waiting period, because you're like mad and you're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna go down and get a gun and I'm gonna go fix this thing or whatever. And so then you go and you're like, it's your first gun. You're like, you never bought one. You're just like some schmo, and but your background's good, but you're hot.
Yeah.
Maybe after 10 days or so, you're not so hot. And then you go and you get your gun out of gun jail and you're like, oh, okay, I got this gun, but I'm not nearly as mad now as I was that day. But then if you've already waited a waiting period out and you've got purchase history that shows, you've purchased 3 or 4 firearms and you still have yet to be arrested for anything weird, and, probably don't need to wait. I don't feel like there should be a waiting period for that. And the restrictions on ammunition are ridiculous, just absolutely ridiculous. It's like, here, I'll sell you this gun, but it's like, here's a car, but no gas. It's like, California's so stupid. It's like, come on, folks. But then at the same time, I think that California has some really, really smart laws for guns. And by that, I will just simply say that the castle doctrine in California is as strong as it is in any other state. You don't have to shoot them in your house. You can, look, disparity of force. All the things that make, having a gun a viable option for protecting yourself are protected in the California law as well. So they make it hard to get, and they make it hard to get bullets and stuff like that. But they're very, very, open to when you can use that thing once you've jumped through all the hoops to have it. So, for example, even if you're in a city that's not as friendly towards CCWs, like maybe LA or Santa Monica or one of those cities, even if you draw your firearm and shoot somebody there, you're probably not going to go to jail in California. In California, if you pull your gun out and don't shoot, you're probably going to go to jail. Isn't that weird?
Well, I think that's one thing that I've always maintained steadfastly in my mind is, if you're that firearm, the number one thing is any situation is to get away from it. Because if you're going to deploy a firearm, it's to defend yourself, and it's not to wound anybody or scare anybody. It's to neutralize the threat, and so I feel like I'm actually in line with that, because once you start waving it around and stuff, I don't think that's the correct mind state to have with it.
You're committing a crime. You are assaulting somebody with a deadly weapon. Look, if I'm afraid of you right now and I draw my firearm out, I had better knock a round off, because anything else, I'm assaulting you.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you have a firearm pointed at me and then we're standing off or something. But that's even more weird to me. That would be weird. But if I think that if everybody had the mentality that they're not going to reach for that thing until the moment they actually need it.
Exactly.
Because I'm not going to pull it out and tell you, hey, stop doing that to me. Now I'm just commanding you to do something, and I'm nobody to you. I'm just Joe Citizen. You're Joe Citizen, and I just happen to have a gun, and I'm assaulting you with it, even though you came up and started shit with me.
Yeah.
And so, to me, there's a discipline that comes with it, and that's why I think that somebody in at least your first gun purchase should just have a quick conversation with you and make sure that you're not some Poindexter that's about to fucking flip off. Somewhere,
right.
Like a postal worker that hates their job or something. Look, that's a real thing, and people are really freaking stupid and really a little bit crazy, and it's a crying shame that parents can get into a position to where their kids get a hold of their firearms and do stupid stuff with them.
Yeah, that's sad.
And I also think that goes a lot along the lines of being a moral and prudent person. That means you're teaching your kids to be as moral and prudent as you are. So if you're going to own guns in your house, you had better just have a really good gut check on the psychology of little Johnny, or you should maybe make the gun not be anything that your weird kid can get a hold of.
Exactly, responsibility. I mean, I saw a clip one time. It's like they had a security camera in the living room, and there's
Which
like
is weird to me.
Yeah,
too.
no,
Who's doing that? But okay, sorry. I didn't
who
know
has
that.
interior cameras? I don't know, but maybe like a nanny cam, I guess. If you're watching kids, but even
but
still,
what if she wanted to-
I don't know.
I'm not
But
trying to get it.
another conversation. But so there's a couple kids playing on the couch, and I guess that a loaded firearm with one in the chamber was tucked down in the couch cushions. When the kids found it and just is looking at it, and then boom, it goes off. The adults will come running in, and then a guy comes in, and he's like, "Oh no!" And it was his gun, and these are not kids that are even of the age where you. I mean, I guess it all depends on when you can teach them responsibility and stuff. But they're toddlers, They did not. I don't think they had the capacity to understand what they're dealing with, and that, to me, that is just
That's negligence.
grossly
It's
negligent. Yeah.
Gross negligence. I mean, now that we don't have any kids in the house or anything, there's like guns on the counter, like someone's
Right.
offload, and that's where it's at. Excuse me. But when the kids come over, we clean up right away.
Yeah.
The things get put away, and sometimes if our guests come over, we have to put them away too. I mean, if people are coming from church, they might frown if they see a 40
Know your
laying
audience.
on the counter. Yeah, definitely. But I agree with you. I think that little kids getting a hold of something like that, and like you said, not understanding what's going on, any of those things, there's negligence there, in my opinion. So again, that an initial gun purchase should have a minute tied to it, where somebody can really, talk to you about what your motives are, and to make sure that you're not, prone. Look, I've seen instances in which people have gone into changing rooms at a department store, and their gun has fallen out onto the ground, and then or they have taken it off to try something on and left it in the dressing room, and now suddenly 82 SWAT officers are at the department store, like trying to clear a person with a gun or something like that. Because trust me, the people on the other side of that dressing room thing, if they see a gun clink onto the floor, it's going to make them nervous. They're probably calling the cops on you.
Yeah.
And so, you see a few situations like that, and you think, what a knucklehead, I mean, I've seen somebody walk away from a dressing room with their gun in the dressing room and be gone for an hour.
Oh
before
my
they came back
God.
looking for it. It's like, no, the cops already came and got your gun, bro. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I'm a CCW holder. You were a CCW holder. You are not a CCW
Yeah,
holder anymore.
with that licensure, you're held at a very high standard. It's unacceptable. I mean, yeah.
To me, it's quite remarkable. So, yeah.
Yeah. I have one more question for you. And I cannot remember it. It was definitely regarding firearms, but it's right there on the tip of my tongue.
You'll have to email me. No, I'm playing. Yeah, I mean, this was a cool topic. It's a hard topic to talk about in California because.
Oh, I know. When you're done.
On to you.
No. Well, I just kind of post-face all of this, that none of this is like legal advice, just like it's not medical advice. Nothing on here is meant to be construed as that. But I know there's certain cases going through the courts right now. I think some of them are tied to like concealed carry in New York, but are also having ramifications across the country, especially in California, because New York and California are very similar in the amount of gun legislature that they have in place. But as of the 31st of July, I think there was a possibility that the waiting periods would be going away. And then I think that there was also something in place where in California you had to have a background check to get ammunition, and then that was struck down. And that was more, a while back. But
well, see, the background check for ammunition doesn't bother me, and neither does the gun. The problem is the time that they try to say that it takes. We live in a period in which a police officer can like literally take my driver's license and swipe it through a credit card looking type machine and know everything about me. So why is it so that if I'm buying something that requires a background check, should it take even 24 hours for a computer's algorithm to say this guy's a douche or not?
Right.
You know, and so either of those things don't bother me, and I don't know what the current legislature environment is on current legislature for firearms right now. I do know that our Supreme Court is a considerably more right-leaning organization right now, and they will probably strike down a lot of these gun things. So now, if you're an NRA nut, which I'm actually not, you know, I mean, I carry guns, I like guns, but I also don't need to lobby for them or do weird shit, you know. I mean,
right.
I own a gun, and that's what happened. You know, but with NRA would be prime right now to really, really take some of these weird legislative things to task, and the Supreme Court would probably be a friendly venue for them right now for that. And so, you know, I'm not opposed to that either. Look, I mean, I think you should own a bazooka if you want it. You know, just don't shoot it at me. I mean, that would be bad.
Right.
I'd probably shoot back. I don't know. I feel like something like that would happen, but you know, to me, restricting what you can own, restricting how you can own it. Look, I'm not even a rifle person, but I own an AR-15 just for the point of owning one. You know? And then I put a bunch of cool optics and stuff on it. So like that's just kind of cool to look at.
Yeah.
Never fired it. Never fired even one. Maybe we should go out and check it out.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Like,
Let's set a time. Yeah.
Happens. But so, you know, to me, guns, you fall on one side of the line or the other. There's very few people that are right in the middle of that thing, which is unfortunate, because I think that a lot of the problems are just like motorcycles, people in cars. They just don't understand something. When you understand something, and when you look at something from a perspective of kind of how I frame the argument, in that our country was founded on guns, to deny that is a weird thing, you know, or it's, to me, important that people that even would oppose them should be able to at least acknowledge that fact.
Right.
Look, if you want to change something, that's great. That doesn't mean that I want to change it. You know, I didn't invent it. I'm not an asshole because I own a gun. I'm not even a monster. I'm actually a good person. Remember, I've said all along through this thing how I grant grace now, and I'm friendly and I'm happy and all of these things. And so, no, I don't want to shoot you. Don't make me. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but I just happen to fall on that particular line, which is at odds with a lot of opinions in California, for sure. Luckily, not yours.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you know, you bring up an excellent point. I mean, just with guns and just everything nowadays, people are just so galvanized to one side or the other, you know, and I'm very much like you. I don't find myself solidly in one camp or the other. I take a look at each issue and, you know, just take an objective kind of laundry list of what is this issue, you know? And I feel like that's something, I guess you could call it critical thinking, or it used to be called common sense, but that's been lost a lot. It's my team or the highway nowadays. And
yeah, well, people have this mentality of they have to be on the winning team.
True.
You know,
Yeah.
My quarterback's better than your quarterback, and my team's going to win the Super Bowl. And and we do that, and we get into these weird little camps, and then we stop realizing that we're actually probably closer on a lot of things than either of our camps would allow us to believe. Wherever you're consuming your information from is going to certainly skew your mentality that way. And so, you know, it takes a breakout kind of person to say, you know what, I'm not sure that the mystery of what you've got going on over there is something that I can wrap my head around. And you would have to be able to say that to both sides. Like I said, I don't dislike conservative principles, but I also think that my president should tell the truth sometimes. And I also think that he shouldn't cheat on his wife. And, you know, and I also think that he shouldn't sell out veterans. And I think that he should not be kowtowing to Russia. Russia's not our friends. And so those facts make it very easy for me to say that I don't much care for him. I don't like the lady that's running either that much, you know. I think that she's got a real problem with some of the wild positions that she's taken in the past to try to gather votes. She's not cleaner than anyone else. You know, I did hear her say defund the police, and I don't agree with that. You know, doesn't make her a monster. Just I don't agree with that. You know,
Right.
but if they came out and showed me where she was stomping on veterans' rights and she was saying things like cheating on her husband or doing weird stuff like that, well, then I would probably put her in the same envelope that I put him in, and you know, put a stamp on it and send him to somewhere that gives a fuck, because I really don't, you know?
Right.
But I do think that that we've got to be on one side or the other mentality is not healthy, in my opinion. And it shows a propensity to be lazy and let other people think for you.
Yeah.
And that
That's
can
a great
be
point.
a challenge for me, because I'm not lazy and I don't let other people think for me. And you know what? If somebody's going to do the thinking for others, I'll go ahead and do it. I'll sign up to be the one that does the thinking for the group. You know. I mean,
Well, I would absolutely trust you with those reins.
right on, fair.
Well, it's absolutely a pleasure having a conversation with another free thinker. I really appreciate you taking the time out to be here. This has been an absolutely stimulating conversation.
Cool.
I look forward to having you back, if you'll be back, maybe as a guest or a co-guest at some point.
Sure.
But yeah, man, have a great night, and thanks again for coming.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
All right, man.
Cheers.